Chair will recognize Senator Lewis for the purpose of opening the debate about the education amendments.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon to our colleagues, to the members of the public who are with us in person and following along remotely. I'm rising to speak about the many significant investments that this budget makes to advance educational opportunity, equity, and excellence across the Commonwealth. The senator from Northampton spoke eloquently earlier this week about the transformative investments in policies included in this budget for public higher education. So I will focus my remarks on K through 12 and early education and care. Of course, I do want to start my remarks by expressing my deep gratitude to the Senate President, to the Chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and really to all of you, my colleagues, for your unwavering dedication and commitment to investing in the education of our young people. So let me begin with some highlights in this budget as it relates to K through 12 education. This budget continues our commitment to fully implementing the Student Opportunity Act, which we passed and Governor Baker signed into law in 2019. Fiscal year 24 represents the third year of a 6-year implementation schedule. So we are on track to achieve full implementation of the SOA in fiscal year 27. The funding we provide in this budget for our public K through 12 schools, also known as Chapter 70, is funded at $6.6 billion. This is a whopping increase of $604 million over the current fiscal year. It's by far the largest year-over-year increase in Chapter 70, and I suspect it is the largest or one of the largest percentage increases in Chapter 70 in the Commonwealth's history as well. This does include $60 per pupil minimum aid, which is twice the amount that was included in the governor's budget back in March. The increased investments that we are making through the Student Opportunity Act are especially critical as our students and our schools continue to recover from the devastating impacts of the pandemic. We certainly also understand the unique challenges that are posed by special education costs in our schools, and also, again, the impact of the pandemic on the number of students that are needing special education services and the acuity of those students that need special education services. So as a result, this budget fully funds the special education circuit breaker with $504 million, again, a historic level of funding for this account. And this would, we expect, will fully reimburse districts at their statutorily required 75% reimbursement rate. We also, very importantly, fully implement reimbursement for out-of-district transportation costs as well. And as you may recall, that was included in the Student Opportunity Act, that we would begin to phase in out-of-district transportation reimbursements along with tuition reimbursements. That is now fully implemented in this budget. So all of our school districts, virtually all of our school districts across the state, will benefit from the circuit breaker with reimbursements both for the tuition costs and the transportation costs for students that have needs that can't be served within their own school district and need to be placed in might be a collaborative, or it might be a specialized school like a Chapter 766 special education school. Also notably, this account, the 500 plus million, includes $20 million, which is set aside for extraordinary relief payments, and this will be used to help offset the very large 14% increase in tuition rates that was implemented by the Operational Services Division, OSD, earlier this year. So that will come into place at the beginning of the new fiscal year Many of us have heard from our superintendents and school committees with concerns about that increase in cost. This $20 million included in the circuit breaker will allow DESE to help offset some of those costs in the next fiscal year. I should also add that conversations are underway between the House and Senate and the administration relative to a future sub-budget, which we would hope to do before the end of the fiscal year. And it is, we are talking about additional funding support potentially in that sub-budget, again, to help our school districts to cover that 14% cost increase that they will all be facing for, again, for tuition rates for those students that are placed out of district. Just very briefly, some other important K-12 investments in the budget include $230 million, which we project to fully fund charter school tuition reimbursements, $97 million for regional school transportation, which represents a 90% reimbursement rate for for regional transportation costs. We include in this budget a record level of funding for rural school aid, $15 million. That's a 173% increase over the current fiscal year. This is absolutely a recognition of the unique and very difficult challenges faced by our rural districts, our small districts, our districts with declining enrollment. Those districts are not generally well served by the Chapter 70 formula for a variety of reasons, which is why we created the rural school aid line item and why we are making a very strong financial commitment to increasing support for the rural school aid account. We also include $6 million for social emotional learning grants and $1 million for the continuation of a successful pilot program to provide universal mental health screenings for all K-12 students. We are all, again, very well aware of the impacts of the pandemic on the mental health and well-being of our young people. So that's why it's even more important that we focus on social emotional learning and on the mental health supports, obviously, not just in our schools, but in our communities at large. There is finally also very significant increase in funding in this budget for early college programs, dual enrollment, innovation pathways. These are all programs that provide our high school students with opportunities for alternative pathways, for opportunities to experience college-level courses while still in high school, to actually get college-level credit. These are fantastic programs because not only do they better prepare students to go on to college, many of them are students who would be first-generation college enrollees, but it also better prepares them to succeed in college. It also gives them credit so that they can graduate college sooner if they want to, and obviously it reduces the cost of attending higher education because these are credits that they get basically for free while they're in high school. And this, along with our investments in vocational technical education, which is also an area where we make significant investments, showcase our commitment to providing all of our high school students with the pathways and opportunities that best meet their needs. The last thing I want to talk about in the K-12 space is a plan that I'm especially pleased that we are including in this budget, and I want to single out the work of the chair, the Ways and Means Committee, who's worked doggedly on this with me and a number of our colleagues for a long time, and that is to enable the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, to make supplemental grants to school building projects that have faced unprecedented cost escalation over the past year. This is due to the high inflation we've been experiencing, particularly in the construction industry. It's due to, that escalation is due to supply chain issues and other pandemic-related factors. These factors have pushed up the cost of these school building projects well beyond what was anticipated, and it is due to no fault of the project teams themselves. So this plan that we include, which includes some giving the MSBA authorization to make these grants, increasing the annual spending cap that the MSBA has to live within, and also including some of our fair share amendment funds toward this purpose is going to allow the MSBA to make additional supplemental grants to about 30 different school districts, school building projects all across the Commonwealth that really will benefit enormously from this additional state aid. So again, wanted to make sure to mention how important it is that that program, that initiative is included in this budget. Alongside that, we also include a special legislative commission which would be charged with looking at a range of issues related to our school building program, the adequacy of that program in meeting all of the needs, a huge number of needs for updating and modernizing our school facilities across the Commonwealth, the equity of our school building program to ensure that every community can access that program, whether that program is doing enough to ensure our school buildings are healthy and green, and we're on track to meet the state's net zero goals by 2050. Remember, our school buildings are often the largest users of consumers of energy, in our municipalities. So there's a lot that we need to be looking at around how to modernize our school building program. And again, this commission, which we include, would include all of the experts, all of the relevant stakeholders to come back to us with recommendations for ways to continue to update, modernize, and invest in our school building program. All right, moving on to early education and care. Obviously, birth to age 5 when children into kindergarten, but also this includes investments we're making in out-of-school time care for elementary age children, whether programs for after school or during school vacation. I am so delighted that this budget provides really a historic level of funding for early education and care. In total, it's approximately $1.5 billion. That is $330 million more than is included in the fiscal year 23 budget. That is remarkable, and I think, again, speaks to the commitment of the Senate President and really all of the membership to increase the level of support we provide to our early education sector. This is a recognition that the sector has been in crisis for a long time. Pandemic has exacerbated that. This is affecting access to high-quality education and care for our youngest learners. It's affecting the ability of providers to operate sustainably and provide care. It's affecting the ability to attract and retain a skilled workforce in this sector. And it is affecting the ability of our employers to be able to attract and retain the workforce that they need. Because if somebody can't get the child care, then they're not going to be able to be productive in the workforce, or they're going to have to scale back their ability to work. So that's why it's so important that this is included in the budget. And I'm particularly pleased that this budget continues to implement the recommendations of the Special Legislative Commission, which we created and which issued its report in March of last year. We began implementing that report and the work of that commission, its recommendations, in the FY23 budget, and we are making major strides again in implementing those recommendations in the FY24 budget. So just let me give you a few highlights. We include $475 million in this budget for the Commonwealth Cares for Children stabilization grants. We often refer to this as the C3 program. This program, which was started using federal pandemic relief dollars, has been absolutely essential to stabilizing our early education providers. In this budget, this will be the first time that we fully fund C3 grants solely with state dollars. And that is a major credit, I think, to the Senate, that we are managing to fulfill that commitment to this grant program with all state dollars now that there are no longer any federal pandemic relief dollars left that we can rely upon. Notably, we also do not rely on any new lottery revenues to fund this program, as was the case in the House budget. This program provides grants or access to grants for all early education and care providers, and they receive these grants on a monthly basis. There is a formula which takes into consideration, obviously, the size of a provider, the ratio of early educators to children, and also has a very important equity component as well. So providers that serve more vulnerable children or are located in more vulnerable communities do receive a larger grant than those that do not. The vast majority of our providers, I think it's close to 90%, have been receiving these grants. And based on survey results that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has done, if we were to not continue these grants, 751 providers serving over 15,000 children have indicated that they would no longer be viable. They would, in fact, have to close their doors. The grants have allowed our providers to retain their workforce, to actually raise salaries and improve benefits, hire additional staff, and it has also prevented providers from having to further increase the already very high parent tuitions that our parents have to pay. So again, critical that we're including this funding. It is a very substantial commitment that we obviously are making with almost $500 million allocated for the C3 grant program. We also include almost $750 million to continue to support our subsidized care. This is for a number of different programs, including children in the custody of DCF, as well as families that qualify based on their income levels. In that $750 million, we do annualize the rate reserve that we provided last year to increase those reimbursement rates to get closer to market rates. So that is annualized for providers in this budget. And we also include an additional $20 million for further subsidy reimbursement rate increases to providers. We also have language that the Department of Early Education and Care may use up to $25 million of any unexpended FY23 subsidy funds for further rate increases in FY24. So in fact, we expect that we will have a total of $45 million made available for further subsidy reimbursement rate increases for our providers. And again, that's critical because those reimbursement rates have historically been below, what the market rates are for many providers across the state for different age levels of children that they're serving. We have been working very hard to bring those rates up. We've been doing that for a number of years. This budget will continue our ability to raise those subsidy reimbursement rates. Let me touch on a few other notable early education and care investments. We include $25 million for early education and care capital grants. This can be used to both improve facilities and also to expand supply to help providers open more seats, more classrooms to serve more families. We include $30 million for the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. This is double the amount that is in the fiscal year 23 budget. So this is another area we're making a major investment. The CPPI program is a terrific program. What it does is it provides grants to public school districts, K through 12 districts, generally has been focusing on gateway cities so far, but we're hopeful we can expand beyond gateway cities. And it enables those school districts to work with community-based providers in that municipality to form a plan and then implement that plan to provide high-quality preschool, so we're really talking about 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, and whether those seats are actually in the public schools or are provided in the community-based partners. But they coordinate that, they use the same curriculum, and it's been a very successful program where it's been implemented, and this additional funding will allow us to dramatically expand access to the CPPI program. We also include $25 million for the income-eligible child care wait list. This we expect will create approximately 3,300 new subsidy slots so that more lower-income families and their children can receive subsidies to attend preschool. So that's going to, again, expand the number of seats that are available. So very pleased with that as well. We include $15 million to continue, again, a very successful initiative that was recommended in the Legislative Commission report and which we already implemented in this year's budget. And that's a program to help subsidize the child care needs for our early educators themselves. Our early educators, which do such important work, are in many cases paid so little that they can't even afford the child care for their own children. So this program basically, again, there is some eligibility criteria, but this gives them access to subsidies as well, and again has proven enormously popular and successful for our early educator workforce. And we increased that program to $15 million. We provide $10 million for professional development and higher education opportunities for our early educators. That will again continue to assist with recruitment and retention and further development of our early education and professionalization of our early education and care workforce. We include $20 million for our child care resource and referral centers. These are very important in assisting parents, providers, employers, and community groups in navigating the state's early education and care landscape. This is a $5 million increase from the current year because we, again, are trying, and again, I have to really give a lot of credit here to the new commissioner of the Department of Early Education and Care, Commissioner Kershaw, who's really working very hard to help families and providers to more easily navigate our state's early education and care system, to figure out, what provider might be the best suited for a particular family and the needs of their child, has available seats, navigating the subsidy system. So the child care resource and referral centers are a critical piece of that puzzle. We include $17.5 million for grants to our wonderful Head Start programs. Most of the funding for Head Start comes from the federal government, but we do provide supplemental funding to meet the state's match requirement, and that money is also an increase in this budget. And then lastly, we include $5 million for grants to providers. This would be for the purpose of childhood mental health consultation services. So remember, I spoke earlier about our commitment to supporting mental health, social emotional learning in our K through 12 schools for those students. We also recognize the importance of supporting mental health among our youngest children as well. And that's what this $5 million grant program is aimed at. So in sum, I think you can certainly see that the Senate Ways and Means budget provides robust and indeed historic levels of support for education in the Commonwealth. Again, thank you to all my colleagues for your unwavering dedication to the educational quality and access for all of our young people. I look forward to the upcoming debate on education-related amendments that I'm sure will strengthen this budget even further. Thank you very much, Madam President.